one night at dinner, my wife said, you should do something with dogs. So I've had dogs. Dogs are like in Oblivion, there's a dog named Buster that in fact reviewers wrote about. They like Buster. But Buster has like a trot on role, right? He's there for a chapter. But going way back even to the Fury of Rachel Monette, there's a dog named Garth who dies heroically, as I recall. So, but you saw these from the third, their third, you never saw them from the dog's point of view at all. You were never in the dog. So I got the idea right that moment that my wife was suggesting something more with the dog. So I got the idea for the whole series in that 30 seconds. And it's like a stool that sits on 3 legs. I was going to tell stories that were narrated by it. There were going to be mysteries in the classic formula going all the way back to Holmes and Watson, where the sidekick, Watson, tells the story in the first person, Holmes. Only in this case, the dog Chet was going to be the sidekick, well, he's no sidekick, and tell the story about Birdie the detective. And the third leg is this, and this is if the series works, it's because of this. This dog would not be a talking dog. He would not know anything a dog shouldn't know. He would be as canine as I could make him. And that would be the context. So he's actually an extremely unreliable narrator in some ways. So like something you learn in an MFA thing, but I didn't. And then I went over to my office. I'm in the house right now, I'm in the tower room, but I actually write in the office, which is over the garage. So I have like this 15-foot commute. So, okay, my wife, in less time than I've been speaking, my wife said, why don't you sing with dogs? I went over to my office and I wrote what became the first page of Dog on It, just to see if it worked. I brought it back to the kitchen. My wife is still there. She read it over. We voted 2-0 that it worked. Now, it was a good thing that none of the kids were home because we could have lost 4-2 and there would be no Chet and Birdie series. So here's what in answer to your question, I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but
no, please don't. This is great.
What I like is the continual flow of surprises that this setup has produced. Some of it, which I had no idea. For example, I didn't realize actually, one day I got a call from my editor and he said, we had this meeting and somebody said, a lot of the scenes, all the scenes, if there's a description that's visual, you're not seeing it from up here, you're seeing it from down here. Like where a dog's head would be. Did he do that deliberately? Meaning me. And so my editor called and he asked me that question. And it's the first time I'd ever thought of it. The other things, of course, are if you're writing from a dog POV, well, humans, we're so visual, right? Everything is visual. But dogs, it's probably number 3. If you've ever had a dog that went blind, they're okay. If they went deaf, they're okay. So it's their sense of hearing and their sense of smell are so powerful. And vision is not, it's in there, of course, but so I was going to be producing a world that's understood through throughout the whole series. So at times, although Chet, when you're writing a mystery story, it's like solving a real crime. You're following a chain of clues and then there's a deduction based on them. Well, Chet can't do any of that, right? And even if he could, if an important clue was being revealed, at that moment he might sniff, a Cheez-It under a chair and he's gone, he misses it. So he's unreliable in that sense. But if somebody has a recently fired weapon in their briefcase, Chet knows right away. And no one else does. So at times he's way ahead of Bernie, at times he's way behind. So doing that gave a kind of flow. But the main thing, I was asked once, I was at a book festival, I can't remember what, and so, they had writers up on stools, that setup. And balancing precariously. Some writers aren't in great physical shape and drink too much and the whole thing. But and someone in the audience said, "What about writer's block?" And these other 2 writers bemoaned, it's a horrible thing. And I just said, I did knock on wood when I said it, but I've never had it. What? And the reason is, if ever I feel I'm about to get stuck, I back up and I remember the beating heart of the story, the spirit of the book. What is the beating heart of the story? Well, the beating heart of the Chet and Bernie novels is the love between Chet and Bernie. So if ever I feel that I'm going down like a corridor that's going to be blocked, I back up and I remember that, and I think, okay, whatever happens has to reflect this love between Chet and Bernie. And the door opens. Up until I began the Chet and Bernie mystery series that I write under my pen name Spencer Quinn, and which I'm very occupied with now. And these are like detective stories that are narrated by the detective's dog, but he's not a talking dog. He's as purely canine as I could make it. But those are written in the first person. Until Chet, none of my writing was in the first person. I just loved doing it, and seeing there's way more to it than I thought at the beginning. The past lives of the different types of for example, take Bark to the Future, which is recent. Chet and Bernie have just solved the case. They're in, they're driving, they're on a ramp. It's a big traffic jam. It slows up and comes to a dead end, a stop. And they're sitting there, and there's this man in terrible shape there, a homeless guy wearing nothing but tattered shorts, burned from the sun, and bald but a long tobacco-stained ponytail. And he comes over, and Bernie, the detective, reaches into the cup holder for some bills to give him. And this guy says, "I can't take your money, Bernie." The guy knows him. Bernie doesn't. It turns out this guy and he were on the same baseball team in high school. Okay, this is Rocket Saluka, who made a famous play in center field, saving a ball game that Bernie was pitching. Bernie was a great pitcher, went to West Point on the strength of his arm. But this is him now. He looks a generation older, and so Bernie, wants to, I think he takes him out for a burger, but the guy, Rocket, wants to go back and do some more stuff. So the next day, Bernie comes back to get him. He's going to help him. But Rocket is gone. He's disappeared. And Bernie wants to find him. And this search leads Bernie all the way back to his high school years. Things were going on there that he didn't know. And he has to relearn everything about his own high school experience in order to somehow do this. And bad things happen that are still redounding till now. So I could do this is what I didn't know when I began. I could do all this in a book narrated by a dog. So that's that's what excites me about it. It's just the possibility of doing that kind of